My girlfriend had always been a firm believer in not getting married. We had been in a relationship for 10 years, and she never once brought up marriage until that day when I received a phone call. Miss Ella, the wedding ring you ordered is ready. When will you be available to pick it up? Oh, and congratulations on your marriage to Mr. Luke Adams. Luke Adams, that was the name of her first love. The next second, she sent me a message. Darling, Luke Adams had a falling out with his family, so he's going to stay at our place for a while. That's when it hit me. She wasn't just marrying another man. She wanted to bring him to our home. I let out a bitter laugh and slowly typed 3 words. Let's break up. When Ella Davis came home, I was standing on the balcony smoking. The sharp scent of nicotine made her frown instinctively. She had always hated the smell of smoke, so ever since we got together, I'd barely touched a cigarette. Why didn't you bother tidying up the place? Since you're home early, couldn't you at least do some chores? Ben Harris, can't you just be a little more diligent? She complained as she took off her coat. She always prided herself on being a modern, independent woman. Chores naturally were beneath her, and so I became the house husband. I had suggested hiring a cleaner, but she adamantly refused, claiming she didn't like strangers touching her things. So, I had to drop the idea. Even when I came home exhausted from work, I'd still clean the house until it was spotless. Why? Because I loved her. But now, thinking of what she said on the phone earlier, my chest felt as if it were being crushed by a boulder, suffocating. I took one last drag, exhaled slowly, and went back into the living room. I'll get the housekeeper to clean up later. Perhaps she sensed the chill in my voice. Ella looked surprised. Unusually, she didn't head straight to the bathroom. Instead, she walked over to me, studying me closely, her eyes filled with an odd emotion. What's wrong, Ben? Bad mood? Something at work not going well. Her voice was unusually gentle, her face even carrying a hint of a smile. Given her temper, it was rare for her to speak this calmly. In the past, I might have been overjoyed to hear such a tone from her, but now, it just seemed absurd. So fake it was almost laughable. To show such tenderness to a man she didn't even love. Truly admirable. My silence in her eyes was a tacit admission. She got up and sighed. Come on, Ben, it's just one failed project. Don't let it get to you. If it doesn't work out, just find another partner. It's not the end of the world. She wasn't wrong. Now that my company had grown, there was no shortage of potential business partners. Losing a single contract wasn't a big deal. Not for me, not for the company. But this project should have been a done deal. It was only canceled because of something laughable. During dinner with the potential partner, he had joked, "So, Mr. Ben Harris, when are you and your girlfriend getting married?" That one sentence made Ella's face turn ice cold. She slammed her chopsticks down and snapped. What a lunatic. Before storming out, she left the other man's face dark with embarrassment. Naturally, the deal fell through. At first, I hadn't planned to be mad at her. I even thought of comforting her when we got home. But instead, she gave me a huge surprise. While I was busy running a company, my girlfriend was busy marrying another man. From now on, you don't need to accompany me on business affairs. Ella's expression immediately dropped. Her voice became sharp with anger. What do you mean, Ben Harris? This is my company. Who are you to tell me what to do? I looked up at her calmly. Unlike me, her eyes were wide and her face twisted with fury. I smiled coldly. Didn't you always say you were born to be a princess, not cut out for business? I'm just making that dream come true. Shouldn't you be happy? Her face darkened even more. Her voice was full of irritation. What the hell are you playing at? Ben Harris, do you really think if you act like this, I'll be the one to back down? Me? Expect her to back down. I wasn't that naive. I pulled a cigarette from my pocket, lit it in front of her, took a deep drag, and slowly exhaled. I heard you're getting married soon. So, do you want me to send a wedding gift? Her expression froze for a moment. Then, as her eyes landed on the landline phone, something seemed to click in her mind. Her expression turned panicked. But quickly, she composed herself and said, You got the call, didn't you, Ben? You've got it all wrong. It's not what you think. Luke Adams's father is sick. He and I are only getting married to put his father at ease. That's all. As soon as she finished speaking, there was a knock at the door. Ella, I'm here. The door opened. I turned my head and couldn't help the mocking smile that formed. At the door stood a man in a white shirt, not tall, but decently good. He was Ella Davis's first love and also her childhood friend, Luke Adams. I wasn't exactly unfamiliar with him. Back when Ella and I had just started dating, not even half a year in, she suddenly turned cold, moody, and often didn't come home. I thought the honeymoon phase had simply passed, and we were settling into a routine. What I didn't expect was that the aloof and composed Ella Davis, I knew could turn into a desperate tail-wagging puppy in front of another man. She said it was a feeling she couldn't let go of, something she couldn't bear to give up. I initially wanted to walk away, but unexpectedly, Luke Adams went abroad. And just like that, Ella Davis came back to me. She said she no longer loved Luke, that what remained was nothing but a sibling-like bond from growing up together. I was so naive back then, naive enough to believe such a shallow excuse. My thoughts returned to the present. Luke Adams gave me a polite smile and nodded as if he were some noble lady from an old aristocratic family. Ben Harrison, if you're really uncomfortable with me staying here, I can go stay in a hotel instead. After all, Ella and I grew up together and have a history. I really don't want to cause tension between the two of you because of me. What a textbook manipulative statement. Before I could respond, Ella Davis frowned and gave Luke a pained look. Luke, don't talk nonsense. You just got back to the country, and aside from me, you don't know anyone. It's dangerous to live alone in a hotel. Just stay here at my place. Then she turned to me, her eyes full of irritation and contempt. Ben Harris, I don't care how long you want to keep acting like this. If you want to break up, go ahead. I'd like to see where you'd end up without me. Ella Davis sneered coldly, her tone full of certainty. As the company had grown, she'd risen to become the respected director in others' eyes. Now, with just one word, she could have me blacklisted across the entire industry. She had that kind of power, which meant she could now threaten me with my own career, recklessly, without fear. I couldn't help but laugh and shake my head. Looking at the woman I'd loved for so many years, I searched her face for guilt, for hesitation, anything. But I was destined to be disappointed. I let out a cold laugh. What now? Planning to consummate your marriage right in front of me? Ella Davis, since you're so capable, why not go ahead and buy your little lover a birdcage while you're at it? I had been with Ella Davis for 8 years. 8 long years. Never once had I spoken to her in such a harsh tone. But so what? For the past few years, my parents had been pressuring me to get married, but I never dared tell them that Ella Davis was a staunch anti-marriage advocate. So all that pressure, I bore it alone. To me, marriage was just a formality. What mattered was that Ella Davis and I loved each other. Or so I thought. What I didn't know was that while I was exhausting myself trying to mediate things with my family for the sake of our relationship, she had already started trying on wedding dresses with someone else. How pathetic. How laughable. Sensing the sarcasm in my tone, Ella Davis grew even more furious. Ben Harris, who gave you the right to speak to me like that? She was angry, but I was lost. Was she angry because I insulted her, or because I insulted Ben Harris? She raised her hand, ready to slap me. I caught her wrist midair, and stood up, towering over her. What's wrong? Feeling guilty, her face flushed red with rage. She tried to yank her arm back, but no matter how hard she pulled, even as her skin strained, she couldn't break free. Luke Adams, who had been silently watching the show, finally stood up and rushed over, face full of concern. Ben Harris, calm down. This is all my fault. It has nothing to do with Ella. I admit I should have told you beforehand. That was my mistake. I apologize. His display of sincere guilt made me seem like the unreasonable one. Before I could say anything, he stepped closer and gave me a deep bow. As he bent forward, he whispered in a voice only the two of us could hear. It's just a wedding. Nothing permanent. Ben Harris, you're nothing but a lovesick dog. What you couldn't get in 8 years. I got with a crook of my finger. Loser. Our eyes met. I could clearly see the mocking glint in his gaze. Rage surged to my head. I grabbed his collar and slapped him hard across the face. Say that again if you dare. But Luke Adams quickly switched to an innocent expression, face full of fear. What are you doing? Ella Davis immediately rushed over, furious. Ben Harris, are you out of your mind? Let go of him right now. She scratched me hard across the face without hesitation. Blood immediately trickled down my cheek. It burned both the wound and my heart. Are you okay, Ella? She asked as she held Luke's hand, her eyes full of concern. Even though he was the one who provoked me, Ella Davis had no hesitation in making me the villain. I'm fine. Ella, it's all my fault for making you to fight. Luke Adams wore a pitiful look while secretly shooting me a smug smirk. It's not your fault. Ben Harris just likes to cause trouble for no reason. Are you hurt? Do you need to go to the hospital? Watching the two of them, being all lovey-dovey, only made the hollow in my chest grow deeper. It was only early autumn, yet I felt an unbearable chill piercing straight through to my bones. I remembered the time I was in a car accident and hospitalized for 2 whole months. During that time, Ella Davis only visited me once, and even then, it was just to discuss business. I had expressed my disappointment to her, but she had no remorse. You're a grown man. What? You get a little hurt and need me to take care of you. The company is swamped right now. Where would I even find the time to sit around with you? Back then, though I felt hurt, I still made excuses for her. But now, I finally see the truth. There are no such things as too many excuses. When someone truly cares, even the smallest injury makes them wish they could bear the pain in your place. Ben Harris, I'm warning you. If anything happens to Luke, you'll pay for it. Ella Davis's words snapped me back to reality. She didn't care one bit about the blood trickling down my face. Her eyes were filled only with venom. I let out a cold laugh. It's just a slap, not a stab wound. What is he made of? Paper. If you really dare to draw blood, I'll make you wish you were dead. Her tone was sharp and serious. There was no hint she was joking. Before I could reply, she grabbed Luke Adams and stormed out without looking back. I stood at the balcony watching their car drive away. I stood there for a long time until my legs went numb before finally wiping the blood from my face with a tissue. Ella Davis, this will be the last time I tolerate you. Ella Davis didn't return that night. Early the next morning, I packed up all of my belongings. This apartment was bought 2 years ago. When we first moved in, Ella Davis was as happy as a little girl, jumping up and down with excitement. Then she threw herself into my arms, hugging my waist tightly, showering me with affection. I still remember what she said back then. She said, "From today onward, this is our home." She even talked about getting a cat and a dog, our future fur babies. But in the end, yes, it was still a home, just not ours. After only 2 years, there was barely anything in the house that belonged to me. But that wasn't surprising. I had devoted myself entirely to work over the years. All I wanted was to help Ella Davis succeed. I barely had time to rest, let alone organize my personal life. Even the clothes I wore were styles from who knows how many years ago. Because of that, when I went out to meet with clients or attend business dinners, I was often the butt of jokes. They'd say things like, "You're a VP of the company, but you still look like an overworked corporate mule." I'd always laugh it off, saying I didn't care about appearances. That comfort was all that mattered. But deep down, I couldn't help but feel a tinge of bitterness. And part of me hoped Ella Davis might one day gift me something nice. But I waited and waited, 8 whole years. And in all that time, the gifts she gave me could be counted on one hand. The moment I closed the door and walked out, I received a friend request. It was from Luke Adams. Though confused, I accepted it. The moment the request was approved, he immediately sent a photo. In the picture, he stood in front of a mirror wearing a brand new tailored suit and an expensive watch on his wrist. The suit and watch were gifts from Ella, costing over $5 million. I heard it came from that big contract he just pulled in from all those late nights. Much appreciated, brah. Every word dripped with pride and malice. I frowned. Luke Adams and I didn't even really know each other. Everything I knew about him came from Ella Davis. Yesterday was, in fact, the first time we truly met. I couldn't understand where all this hostility came from. If he truly liked Ella Davis as her first love, he'd had plenty of opportunities. He could have pursued her openly. Why choose to act like a third party, mocking me so cruelly? I thought for a moment and began typing. What's this? Didn't like her before, now suddenly obsessed. He replied instantly, as if he'd been waiting for my message. "You pathetic loser. You should be thanking me for letting you be with Ella for those 8 years. Before I could respond, he bombarded me with more messages, bragging nonstop. From his smug words, I slowly pieced together a shocking truth. After the college entrance exams, Ella Davis had been desperate to marry Luke Adams, but Luke's family was wealthy and ran a successful business. He didn't think Ella was good enough. He was also preparing to study abroad. So, the two of them made a pact. If she could become someone impressive enough in the future, he'd come back and marry her. But Ella, with her empty ambition and average abilities, had no way of rising on her own. So, she came up with a perfect plan. She needed someone to help her. And I, with my top grades and strong work ethic, became the perfect sucker in her eyes. I put down my phone and sat on the balcony, smoking an entire pack of cigarettes. But even then, I couldn't wrap my head around how our 8-year relationship had turned into something so worthless, like garbage. Just as I finished the last cigarette, I received a call from one of my colleagues. The company that Ella Davis now ran, the one that had grown to this scale, was practically built by me from the ground up. It was no exaggeration to say it was my life's work. But when I arrived at the office, I was stunned to see Luke Adams directing security to toss all my personal belongings out the door. I stepped forward and demanded, "What do you think you're doing?" "What am I doing?" Luke Adams glanced at me with a sneer and said lightly, "Didn't Ella tell you? As of today, I am officially the new vice president of the company. And you," he pointed at the desk next to the trash can, "you'll be my assistant from now on." I nearly laughed from anger. Ella Davis's company was founded by me when I was 22. In the beginning, it was just a tiny studio. I was the only employee. I poured all my time and effort into it, working myself to the bone to bring it to where it is today. I know every employee and every project inside out, and now some outsider wants me to be his assistant. I let out a cold laugh, stepped forward, and kicked him to the ground. "Luke Adams, I don't give a damn what you and Ella Davis have going on, and I don't care what the hell you think you are. But this company was built from the ground up by me. You're just a pretty boy. What gives you the right? And what gives you the right to lecture anyone? Don't forget, I'm the boss of this company." Ella Davis cut me off sharply. I turned and realized she had appeared behind me at some point, surrounded by employees watching the drama unfold. Before I could speak, Ella Davis rushed forward, shoved me hard, and helped Luke Adams up from the ground. Luke looked pitiful and aggrieved. "Ella, it seems Ben Harris doesn't really respect your leadership. I mean, I'm okay taking a few knocks, but at the end of the day, you're the boss. Shouldn't an employee listen to their superior?" Triggered by his words, Ella's expression turned even uglier. Without a second's hesitation, she raised her head and looked at me with disdain. barking her order like a queen. Ben Harris, I'm officially notifying you. You're fired. I was surprised. Not because of how ruthless she was, but because she had no idea how much she owed me. I thought she'd at least have some self-awareness, but clearly she was just another fool. I smiled faintly. No need for you to fire me. I came here today to resign. Ella Davis, I hope you won't regret this. Ella Davis was fuming. You'll be the one regretting this. Ben Harris, no one will want you after this. I'll be waiting for you to crawl back and beg me. Amid her threats, I left without looking back. After leaving the company, I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. It's me. Does your offer still stand? Laughter, clear and musical, came from the other end of the line. Of course it does. What's this? Finally realized you should leave that idiot girlfriend of yours. I didn't respond to that. Instead, I asked, and what about the terms? The woman hesitated for a moment, then replied, I don't know your current situation very well, so let's go with the salary and position we agreed on before. As for everything else, once you prove yourself, I promise you'll be rewarded handsomely. I was just about to agree when I heard an engine roar in the distance. Moments later, a McLaren pulled up in front of me. The driver's side window rolled down, revealing a stunningly beautiful face, bold and radiant. What are you standing around for? Get in. Mia Carter smiled and took off her sunglasses. Without hesitation, I opened the door and got in. I met Mia Carter 5 years ago. Back then, Ella Davis's company, our company, was teetering on the brink. Mia Carter, on the other hand, was already a successful businesswoman. Our meeting was a complete coincidence. That day, I was waiting outside a hotel to meet a potential client, holding a proposal in my hand. It was raining. When the client stepped out, I immediately rushed over and held up an umbrella for him. Surprised, he looked at me as I smiled and introduced myself and my company, then handed him a packet of herbal tea. I heard you have stomach problems and probably don't feel great after drinking. This tea should help. Let's chat while we walk. I won't take up much of your time. That small gesture left a strong impression on the client. And just like that, we landed our very first deal. Mia Carter noticed me. Then the very next day, she made me an offer, $1 million annual salary to work for her. She said someone so young, yet so thoughtful and bold, was a rare find. But I turned her down without hesitation. At the time, my heart belonged to Ella Davis alone. Mia didn't push. She just handed me a business card. If you ever change your mind, call me. I didn't refuse, but I never thought I'd actually need to use that number one day. To be honest, Mia said as she drove, I was surprised when I got your call. I thought you were going to spend the rest of your life tied to that crooked tree. Her teasing tone made it feel like we'd known each other forever. I didn't reply. I just smiled bitterly. Back then, I really was surprised when Ella Davis confessed to me. As far as I remembered, we hadn't interacted much at all. But she said she had liked me for a long time. I didn't say yes immediately. It felt strange to be confessed to by someone I barely knew. But she proved it with actions. For 3 whole months, she messaged me every day to check in and see how I was doing. Every morning while I practiced driving, she'd show up downstairs with breakfast. Day after day, without fail. No one had ever cared for me like that before. It didn't take long before I fell for her. And just like that, we got together. Even after years of a long-distance relationship, I never once wavered. I truly believed that she and I would grow old together. What I didn't expect was that this relationship had been full of calculations from the very start. My thoughts drifted back to the present. Mia Carter was easy to get along with. When the car arrived downstairs, she handed me a folder from the back seat. These are company documents and ongoing projects. Take some time to go through them. That won't be a problem, right? I immediately nodded. No problem. Mia raised an eyebrow. Since it's not a problem, how about coming with me to meet a client tomorrow? Sure. With the folder in hand, I stayed up all night reviewing everything. It left me with no energy to even think about Ella Davis anymore. The next day, I spent the entire day running around with Mia Carter. And that one day was enough for me to gain a deeper understanding of her. She was the kind of woman who could handle anyone with poise and charm. Her words and actions were flawless. She could make people sign deals while laughing and chatting without them even realizing what had just happened. I was truly amazed. It also made me realize there's always someone better, always someone smarter. Over the days that followed, I became fully immersed in my work. So much so that when Ella Davis called me, I didn't react at first. Mia asked. I nodded in response. She glanced at the screen and said softly, 3 minutes. Handle your personal business. Yes, President Carter. I stepped aside with my phone. As soon as I answered, Ella Davis's arrogant voice rang in my ear. Well, Ben Harris, realizing life isn't so easy now, are you? If you just come back and apologize to Luke Adams, I'll pretend none of this ever happened. I was momentarily speechless. Where did Ella Davis get her confidence from? But thinking it through, I understood. Maybe it was because I had loved her too deeply, so deeply that she forgot she wasn't anything special at all. I'll say this once. Ella Davis, we're over. Don't contact me again. My tone was calm, devoid of any emotion. But Ella suddenly flew into a rage. She gritted her teeth and let out a cold laugh. Fine, fine, fine. Ben Harris, you're hopeless. I'll be waiting for the day you come crawling back to beg me. I hung up decisively and immediately blocked her number. When I returned to Mia Carter, it had been exactly 3 minutes. She nodded in satisfaction. Let's go. President White is still waiting for us. We walked into the office together. She seemed very familiar with President White, chatting effortlessly the moment they sat down. As for me, I was just a background character. I didn't plan to eavesdrop, but a familiar name caught my attention in their conversation. Did you hear about the Wong family's bankruptcy recently? When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. A lot of people got dragged down with them. No kidding. The most desperate bootlickers back then were the Adams family. Their son, Luke Adams, almost married into the White family. You know, but now that the White family's gone bankrupt, the Adams family probably won't be doing much better. I didn't catch the rest of the conversation, but the mention of Luke Adams stuck with me. On the drive back, I was visibly distracted. Mia Carter noticed. What are you thinking about? You seem out of it. I hesitated, then told her everything about Luke Adams and Ella Davis. Mia snorted and shook her head. You're telling me the Adams family son is now with your ex-girlfriend? That's actually kind of funny, but it makes sense. Their family's drowning in debt. If they don't find some way out, they'll be paying it off for life. Your ex's company is probably... Her voice carried a tinge of shock, but then she changed her tone. But if you want to help her, I wouldn't mind. Once her company's value drops enough, we can just buy it out. After all, it was yours to begin with. She lowered her head and returned to her files. But her words left me deep in thought. So someone did remember all I had given for Ella Davis's company. I started paying attention to the company's situation. Just as I predicted, after I left, they weren't able to secure any new deals aside from the ones I had already finalized. On the other hand, Luke Adams had been spending money like water. His social media was full of luxury watches, sports cars, and photos of property deeds. I remembered how back then I had to beg Ella Davis to buy me a simple gift. And she'd always act so reluctant. I even convinced myself she was just frugal. Now I see how ridiculous that was. Several former colleagues reached out to complain. They said Luke Adams did nothing as vice president, and Ella Davis was now spending all her time on dates with him, dumping all the work on the rest of the team. Quite a few had already quit. All I could do was sympathize, but it didn't really matter. After all, Ella and Luke's good days were probably numbered. The next time I saw Ella Davis was at a bidding conference. I was there to observe the event and unexpectedly ran into Luke Adams and Ella Davis. The moment she spotted me, she walked over and stood right in front of me. Well, if it isn't Ben Harris, what now? After leaving me, have you fallen so low, you're doing servant work? Her tone was full of disdain, and her eyes looked at me like I was trash. But she didn't realize at all how the people around her were looking at her, as if they were watching a fool. These days, I had been following Mia Carter around and met plenty of business executives. Anyone who wasn't blind could see that Mia Carter was clearly grooming me for something bigger. Yet, Ella Davis had been too busy secretly meeting up with Luke Adams to pay any attention to what was happening in the business world. I chuckled lightly and retorted, "What? So, even nobodies like you can get into a bidding conference now?" Luke Adams stepped forward and wrapped his arm around Ella Davis's waist, speaking in a sarcastic tone. "Forget it, Ella. Maybe Ben Harris is just saving face, angry at us, which is fair. We were in the wrong, after all. Ben Harris, if you're really struggling, just say the word. Out of respect for those 8 years you spent with her, I can talk her into letting it go." Ella Davis laughed smugly. "That's right, Ben Harris. Didn't I say it already? Just get on your knees and beg me, and I'll pretend none of it ever happened." I didn't respond. I just glanced down at the time. The bidding conference was about to start. Mia Carter should be arriving any minute. I didn't have the time to waste on them, so I stepped aside, preparing to walk away. But Ella Davis clearly wasn't ready to let this farce end. She caught up to me and grabbed my wrist just as she was about to speak. Her eyes fell on the watch I was wearing. Where did you get such an expensive watch?" Her voice was full of surprise, eyes wide in shock. I shook her off impatiently. "What's it got to do with you?" She narrowed her eyes and sneered. "Oh, I see now. No wonder you're acting so cocky. Found yourself a sugar mama, huh? Ben Harris, you really never change. Addicted to living off women, aren't you?" Her voice was loud, as if trying to shame me in front of everyone, as though she held the moral high ground. I shrugged nonchalantly. "You flatter me. But speaking of living off others, how could anyone compare to the guy standing next to you?" Ella Davis's smug expression instantly vanished. "Ben Harris, who do you think you are? How dare you insult Luke?" She really was protective of Luke Adams. She even rushed at me, intending to slap me in front of all these people. But this time, I wasn't going to tolerate her anymore. The moment she raised her hand, I raised mine too, and gave her a hard slap. She staggered backward and nearly fell. Clutching her red cheek, she looked at me, eyes filled with shock and rage. "Ben Harris, how dare you hit me?" Before I could reply, the sound of high heels echoed from behind. Who let this stray dog bark here? Doesn't she know that after the founding of the country, monsters weren't allowed to walk freely? Mia Carter walked over confidently, stopping at my side. She glanced at Ella Davis with a look of contempt. Well, if it isn't President Davis, what's the matter? Lost so much money you can't even stand straight anymore. Ella Davis's face turned pale, but Mia Carter's status was too overwhelming. She didn't dare utter a word in protest. All she could do was force a smile, more bitter than crying. President Carter, you're joking. I definitely still have a lot to learn from you when it comes to running a company. About the last proposal, I wonder if President Carter, She tried to gently bring it up, but Mia didn't even spare her a glance. Instead, she looked at me and said softly, "What are you doing, just standing here? The bidding is about to start. Didn't I already tell you? When you see a rabid dog, stay away or you'll get bitten." I suppressed my laughter and followed her out. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught Ella Davis's stunned expression, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. At this point, Mia Carter was the center of attention, surrounded by admiration, and because I was with her, people looked at me differently too. While I stood in the spotlight, I saw Ella Davis standing off to the side. Her face was twisted, jaw clenched, like she wanted to tear me apart. I raised my wine glass and gave her a polite smile and toast. In the end, the major deal of the bidding event still went to Mia Carter. Ella Davis had already slunk off midway through, tail between her legs. I thought that after this, Ella Davis wouldn't have the face to appear in front of me again. But to my surprise, she actually invited me to her wedding. Mia Carter held the invitation in her hand, smirking with mockery. Does she think losing face the other day can be fixed with a wedding? I shrugged innocently. So, are you going? Of course. Mia Carter narrowed her eyes, clearly displeased. Before she could explode, I quickly explained, Luke Adams has been selling off assets recently. I think he's about to skip town. People at the company told me he's been visiting the finance department a lot lately. So you think Ella Davis is about to lose everything? I smiled and nodded. No need to say more. Mia Carter laughed casually, tossing the invitation back to me. Go then. Permission granted. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your royal favor. The wedding venue was lavishly decorated. A lot of guests showed up. Ella Davis had even invited several media outlets, probably hoping that this grand wedding would silence the rumors of her company's impending bankruptcy. Unfortunately, this might only confirm them. Ella Davis, in her wedding dress, walked slowly toward me. Once upon a time, I'd imagined this scene countless times. I thought that when I stood at that altar, I'd tell everyone about our 8 years together. I'd tell them how deeply I loved her. But thankfully, none of that ever happened. Fortunately, I discovered her true colors before the wedding. How does it feel, Ben Harris? Isn't all this exactly like your pathetic little daydream? Too bad I'm not marrying you. Ella Davis stared at me intensely, as if trying to spot the tiniest trace of pain or regret on my face. But inside, I felt absolutely nothing. So what? Maybe it was my indifference that enraged her. Ella Davis clenched her teeth and snapped, Ben Harris, stop pretending. Everyone knows your biggest dream in life was to marry me. You must be heartbroken, right? Before she could finish, a woman in a bridesmaid's dress came running over and whispered something into her ear. Immediately, Ella Davis's expression changed drastically. What did you say? How could he just vanish out of nowhere? What are you waiting for? Go find him. She shot me one last glare and lifted her dress, hurrying away. As for me, I found a seat and sat down comfortably, ready to enjoy the show. Soon, all the guests had taken their seats, but Luke Adams and Ella Davis still hadn't appeared. Whispers began to spread through the venue. Where are they? Why aren't they here yet? Don't tell me they're not coming. I smiled as I picked up my phone. Mia Carter had specifically told me to record this iconic moment or she'd dock my pay. More than an hour later, Ella Davis finally showed up, but her face was ashen. She dragged her wedding dress alone onto the stage, voice trembling. I'm sorry, everyone. Due to some unforeseen circumstances, the wedding will be postponed. But before she could finish, the doors to the venue were flung open. Uniformed officers strode in under the stunned gaze of the crowd and headed straight toward Ella Davis. Is Luke Adams an employee of your company? He's under suspicion of business fraud. Bring him out. What followed could only be described as chaos. To sum it up, Luke Adams had tricked Ella Davis into signing over her company shares the day before the wedding, making himself the majority shareholder. Then, on the day of the wedding, he disappeared, skipping the ceremony and selling her company at a bargain price. In the end, Ella Davis had lost both her man and her business. She was left with nothing. As someone involved, I was also called in to give a statement. The police told me that Luke Adams was now officially on the run. When I walked out of the station, I saw Ella Davis sitting on the steps outside. She was still in her wedding dress, but her eyes were lifeless. All the arrogance had disappeared. The moment she saw me, her eyes suddenly lit up. Ben, she lunged at me, wrapping her arms around my legs. I'm sorry. I was fooled by him. I didn't mean it. You have to believe me. We were together for 8 years. How could we just break up like that? I'm willing to marry you now. We can. I couldn't be bothered to listen to her nonsense. I lifted my leg and kicked her off, then brushed off my pants. Ella Davis, we're all adults. You make your choices. You live with the consequences. She opened her mouth about to say something, but a honk from a car interrupted her. Mia Carter rolled down the window, smiling at me. If you don't get in now, are you planning to walk all the way back? I smiled, ignored Ella Davis, and walked away without looking back. I returned to the company again, only this time, the company truly belonged to me. Luke Adams was eventually caught by the police. Apparently, he'd already cozied up to a new sugar mama. As for Ella Davis, she still hadn't given up, loitering around the building, hoping I'd change my mind. But one day, she was lost in thought and got hit by an oncoming delivery truck. Her legs were shattered. She would spend the rest of her life in a wheelchair. She asked to see me. I refused without hesitation. 6 months later, I had the company running smoothly. I finally had the time and peace of mind to ask her a card or something. President Carter, wouldn't you say it's time for a capable man like you to have a wise and loving woman by his side? Mia Carter smiled, stood on tiptoe, and kissed me gently on the lips. You devil, you already have me. Isn't that enough?